Ipinaliwanag ng Philippine Institute of Volcanology and Seismology na ang sunod-sunod na lindol sa Ilocos Sur ay nagmula sa Manila Trench at maaari pang sundan ng isang magnitude 8.4 na lindol. Ang lindol na ito ay maaaring magresulta sa tsunami na may alon na abot mula sa 3 hanggang 15 metro ang taas na tatama sa mga baybayin ng Zambales, Pangasinan at iba pang probinsya sa Hilaga. Nagbigay ng babala ang Philippine Institute of Volcanology and Seismology sa publiko mag-ingat at magmasid sa mga senyales ng posibleng tsunami tulad ng malalakas na lindol at pagbabago sa antas ng dagat.
Japan Airlines says its computer network has come under cyber attack, causing problems with its baggage management system. JAL says the attack began shortly before 7:30 Thursday morning. The airliner says the issue is affecting both domestic and international flights and that some are already delayed.
Yeah,
It's like, what do? I wish the flights just kept to the schedule.
It's now so crowded in the airport. I've got children and I'm wondering if we can make it to Grandma's house safely.
The company says that as of 11:20 a.m., more than 30 flights departing from Haneda Airport have been delayed by up to an hour and 17 minutes. JAL says it deeply apologizes to customers and others for the inconvenience. It also says there's no impact on flight safety.
In a tragic story that began on Christmas Eve, we now know the name of a woman stabbed multiple times and killed in what Beaumont police are calling a family violence homicide. Police and family members tell KFDM the victim is 40-year-old Tiffany Guidry. This is a photo of Tiffany shared by a relative. They call her a wonderful woman, loved by her friends and family. Relatives also shared a picture of Tiffany and her son, Chris. She leaves behind not only her son, but a large number of relatives and friends who tell us they are grieving her loss on this Christmas Day. This was breaking news yesterday on Live at 5, and today we've learned police are calling a man who was also stabbed the suspect in the homicide. Officer Haley Morrow says he was taken to a hospital in critical condition. He's in police custody while doctors treat him, and he'll be taken to jail once he's released. It all happened around 2:45 yesterday afternoon at a home in the 4900 block of Mallet Street. That's in southeast Beaumont between Highland and Kenneth. Police and EMS rushed to the home, and within minutes, officers reported a woman dead on the scene from multiple stab wounds and a man suffering traumatic injuries from a stabbing. KFDM's Taylor Justice has reaction from neighbors trying to make sense of the Christmastime tragedy.
A crime scene unit rushing to meet police and EMS at a home in the 4900 block of Mallet Street in southeast Beaumont.
When officers arrived, they located a deceased female and an injured male inside of a residence.
Officers finding a shocking scene inside the home. Outside, candy cane Christmas decorations, crime scene tape in front of them. A season of joy and giving turning tragic.
It's being investigated as a homicide, and our family violence unit is investigating. We are not looking for a suspect. We believe we have all of the parties that are involved.
Police finding a woman dead inside the home, suffering from multiple stab wounds. A man with traumatic injuries from a stabbing. He was alive and rushed by ambulance to Christus St. Elizabeth Hospital.
This neighborhood is, yes, it's really quiet, except on the holidays. You know, there's a lot of gun shooting around here, you know, but other than that, there's no violence around here. It's really, really quiet.
A neighbor says nothing like this has happened in the 10 years he's lived in the neighborhood.
They're real friendly, you know. They'll wave at you and talk to you and everything, you know, because I've talked to them before. But other than that, there's nothing going on around here. It's really, really quiet neighborhood.
The silence broken by police investigating what led up to the Christmas Eve homicide.
And again, that was our Taylor Justice reporting, and Taylor is still working on this developing story for us today. She'll have any updates tonight on Live at 5 and KFDM 6 News at 6.
And police are investigating a Christmas night shooting at the Phoenix airport. 3 people have been hospitalized with gunshot wounds and another with a stab wound. Authorities say the incident took place at a restaurant outside security, and they believe it started as a family dispute. Amelia Fabiano from our Phoenix affiliate has the latest.
A chaotic Christmas night here at Phoenix Sky Harbor after a shooting and stabbing incident involving at least 5 people. Now, Sky Harbor Airport police say around 9:45 local time last night, officers got a call of a shooting outside of a restaurant here at Terminal 4, outside the security checkpoint. They found 3 people had been shot, a woman and 2 men. That woman we know is facing life-threatening injuries. The men are in stable condition. They also found 2 people outside in the parking garage, 1 floor up, a juvenile girl and a man. They say the man had been stabbed but is in stable condition. Both of those people outside have been detained, and police say there are no outstanding suspects. Police say all of these people involved knew each other and nobody outside of their group got hurt. Security checkpoint A and the SkyTrain here at Terminal 4 were temporarily closed as a precaution. Some people near the scene ran out of the airport after hearing reports of that shooter.
People were checking their bags in, and then somebody came running from downstairs saying there was somebody, an active shooter. So everybody ran outside, and then people were outside for 30, 45 minutes until it said it was all clear to come back in. A little shaken, but I just hope everybody's okay. I don't really know much about what happened or what went on.
Important to note, police say this was not an active shooter situation. And besides this closed off area behind me, again, before those security checkpoints, all other airport operations have resumed as normal this morning. Diane?
Amelia Fabiano in Phoenix, thank you.
Meantime, a pizza delivery tip in Kissimmee led to a stabbing, and the woman, officials say behind it, is facing several charges.
Yeah, this is wild. We're told the victim is stable. West 2's Sanat Gabrigadigas tells us detectives in Osceola County are now looking for a second suspect in this case.
I've never heard of nothing like that. I have 3 kids, but it's good to know because I'll always be aware.
A person staying at the Rivera Motel in Kissimmee is in the hospital after deputies in Osceola County say the victim was stabbed over a pizza delivery tip.
That goes to show you don't trust nobody, no matter where they are.
22-year-old Brianna Avello is accused of making the delivery. Detectives say she was not happy with the tip, so she decided to attack. Investigators say Alvello came back to the motel room, this time with a man who had a gun. They say the 2 of them forced their way into the room, and then Alvello used a knife to stab the victim several times.
Good morning, ma'am. Please state your name.
Brianna Alvello. She was in court on Christmas Eve and is facing charges of home invasion, attempted murder, kidnapping, and aggravated assault.
State believes that this is a punishable by life offense. There should be no bond set, and it should not be set for a pretrial detention hearing.
Deputies are looking for the armed man who was with Alvello. Covering Osceola County in Kissimmee, Sanat Gabrigadigas, West 2 News.
And Avello is being held without bond. Her pretrial hearing is set for tomorrow.
To other news now. Thames Valley police say that 2 women have died and a man and a teenage boy have suffered serious injuries after reports of a stabbing yesterday. A dog was also killed in the incident. Police were called to an apartment block on Santa Cruz Avenue in Bletchley in Milton Keynes after a 999 call. A 49-year-old man was arrested on suspicion of murder and attempted murder, and police say they're not looking for anyone else in relation to what happened. Joining us now is our correspondent Amelia Harper, who is in Bletchley for us. And this is terrible happening on, well, any day, really, but especially on Christmas Day.
Yeah, that's right. Well, a murder investigation has now been launched after those two women died following reports of a stabbing here in Milton Keynes on Christmas Day. And as you said, Thames Valley Police also saying that a dog was injured in the incident but died after it was taken to the vets. So let's set out what we know. We understand that police were called to this block of flats here in Bletchley behind me at around 6:30 p.m. on Christmas Day. The two women, aged 38 and 24, sadly died at the scene. Their next of kin have been informed, we understand, according to police. Police also say that a man and a teenager were also injured in that incident as well. They are in hospital in a stable condition, according to police. And now a 49-year-old man from the area has been arrested on suspicion of murder and attempted murder, and he is in custody at the moment. And in terms of really what we can see at the moment, on the ground there are a number of first aid bags. There's what looks like a white box of wipes. In the background there, another first aid bag and a number of gloves and these little yellow cones marking out areas of interest for police. And we have had a little bit more information as well from the senior investigating officer, Detective Chief Inspector Stuart Brangwyn, who says, first, I'd like to extend my deepest condolences to the families of the women who've tragically died in this shocking incident. It also says we've launched a double murder investigation, which may be concerning to the wider public. However, we've made an arrest and they're not looking for anyone else in relation to this incident. And the parties are known to each other. And they say that there will be a wider police presence in the area as their investigation continues.
Amelia, thank you very much.
And staying in the United States, incoming President Donald Trump says he will end transgender lunacy once he takes office in January. Now, speaking in Phoenix, Arizona on Sunday, Trump vowed to create policies to only recognize two genders, male and female. And in an apparent reference to gender-affirming surgery, Donald Trump said that he will end the mutilation of children with a stroke of his pen.
With the stroke of my pen on day one, we're going to stop the transgender lunacy. And I will sign executive orders to end child sexual mutilation, get transgender out of the military and out of our elementary schools and middle schools and high schools. And we will keep men out of women's sports. And that will likewise be done on day one. Should I do day one, day two, or day three? How about day one, right?
Now, this is not the first time Trump has railed against transgender rights. In fact, he aggressively ran television ads during his campaign mocking Vice President Kamala Harris for her support of transgender rights. And in the run-up to the presidential election, Donald Trump pledged to impose restrictions on trans students in schools. His policies could affect the use of preferred pronouns, bathrooms, and locker rooms by students. Moreover, the incoming president believes that any doctor or hospital providing gender-affirming care should be banned from practice. And when it comes to sports, Donald Trump embraces his anti-trans mantra of not allowing biological men in women's sports.
And we will, of course, keep men out of women's sports, I promise. Last year, the radical left's gender insanity arrived right here in Salem when a man was allowed to transfer onto the Roanoke College women's swim team. And I just met them backstage, the great swimmers. I didn't notice a male on that particular team. I didn't notice a male on that team. Perhaps I don't understand what's happening, but I didn't see any males on that team, believe me. But the brave members of the swim team stood up to the transgender fanatics, something new in our country. And those strong And I would say beautiful, but I'm not allowed to use that term anymore with women, because if you say beautiful, it means the end of your career in politics. You're not allowed to say a woman's beautiful, so I will not tell you how beautiful they are, but they are beautiful. But those strong, beautiful, intelligent women, they won.
The incoming commander-in-chief also plans to discharge transgender members of the U.S. military, deeming them medically unfit. His plans would likely include banning future recruitment of trans people in the military and gender-affirming care. Now, with Donald Trump reiterating his anti-trans rhetoric, anger and anxiety have become dominant emotions among rights activists and the LGBTQ+ community.
I don't think that I would be here today for this interview if I wasn't receiving the care that I do receive today. Without the care, I was really deeply depressed, lost, and unable to live a regular life. I think that that's what we all want, is to be able to access care that will affirm our gender, allow us to flourish into who we are, and live lives that are loved and cared for.
The question is, who's best to make the decision? It's the individual that's best to make the decision about their access and their doctor or whomever they're trying to access support from. I don't necessarily know that the federal government making that decision is a good idea, but I certainly don't think that we should have differences between the states. I think each person should have the ability to access the support, the care, the resources that they need in order to live like all of us.
Now, a Washington Post survey says nearly 2 million people living in the United States identify as transgender, representing less than 1% of all adults. And now their future depends on Donald Trump, who could crush their hopes and dreams of living normal lives with his uncertain executive orders. And the already tense ties between India and Canada have now plunged even further. Now, in an explosive investigation, India's Economic Intelligence Agency has uncovered an international syndicate of human traffickers linked to Canada. The central agency found that at least 260 Canadian colleges are suspected to have been involved in a money laundering case linked to trafficking illegal Indian migrants from Canada to the United States. The investigation is part of a probe into the death of an Indian family that was attempting to illegally enter the United States from Canada back in 2022. The family of 3 froze to death on the U.S.-Canada border in Manitoba after traffickers left them in the middle of a snowstorm. The money laundering probe launched by India has exposed the international syndicate of human traffickers in Canada. Investigations reveal that these traffickers arrange admissions in Canadian colleges and universities and then use the student visas to send Indians to the United States illegally. Now, the probe has also revealed that the Indian students are being charged between $60,000 to $70,000 by Canadian agents to illegally cross into the United States. In recent months, India has repeatedly raised concerns over the safety and well-being of its nationals in Canada. Not just border crossings, Indian students have also been victims to deadly gun violence in Canada as well. Over the past 2 weeks, at least 3 Indian students have been murdered, and New Delhi has now demanded a thorough investigation into the killings.
In the last week or so, we have had unfortunate tragedies in Canada. 3 Indian students have been murdered in violent crimes. We are deeply saddened by these terrible tragedies that have struck our nationals in Canada. Safety and security and welfare of Indian nationals, in particular students, for us in Canada and elsewhere is a matter of paramount importance. Our High Commission in Ottawa and our consulates are in regular touch with local authorities for their welfare and for their safety. We have also issued advisory for our nationals and our students to exercise extreme caution and remain vigilant in view of the deteriorating security environment in Canada as a result of the growing incidence of hate crimes and criminal violence.
Meanwhile, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau continues to crack down on the influx of migrants from other countries, particularly India. Last month, Ottawa ended the fast-track visa program for international students from India and 13 other countries. And the Canadian government has also requested Indian students living in the country to resubmit crucial documents such as study permits and visas for re-verification. Canada has reviewed around 500,000 documents in 2024 alone and lowered the number of visa applications from India students. And New Delhi now accusing 260 Canadian colleges of human trafficking, it looks like the widening gulf between the two nations is only going to continue to grow even wider.
Over 17 people have been killed in clashes in Syria's Tartus province after security forces sought to arrest an officer under deposed leader Bashar al-Assad, who was linked to the Sednia prison. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights said 14 members of the General Security Force of Syria's new authority were killed along with 3 armed men in Kirbat al-Mazar. The doors of Syria's prisons were flung open after rebels led by Hayat al-Sham, HTS, ousted Assad early this month, more than 13 years after his brutal repression of anti-government protests triggered a war that has killed more than 500,000 people. The observatory said the wanted man was an officer in the former regime forces who held the position of director of the Military Justice Department and field court chief, identifying him as Muhammad Kanjo Hassan. It said that he issued death sentences and arbitrary judgments against thousands of prisoners.
Syria's newly appointed foreign minister, Assad Hassan al-Shibani, told Iran on Tuesday not to spread chaos. In a statement on X, he said, "Iran must respect the will of the Syrian people and the country's sovereignty and security. We warn them from spreading chaos in Syria and we hold them accountable for the repercussions of the latest remarks." These remarks came shortly after Iranian Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei called on young Syrians to take back their country from rebels who toppled former Syrian President Bashar al-Assad.
I predicted the phenomenon of a noble, strong group rising in Syria will happen. The young Syrian has nothing to lose. They should stand with strong will against those who designed and those who implement the insecurity. With God's will, He will overcome them.
Tensions between the countries are high since Iran provided critical support to Bashar al-Assad throughout Syria's nearly 14-year civil war. Syria has long served as a key smuggling route for Iranian weapons to Lebanon's terror group Hezbollah. Iran has said that there's, quote, no direct contact with Syria's new rulers after the fall of Assad. In addition, Syria's new government is now planning to demand $300 billion compensation from Iran over damages inflicted upon the Syrian people and the infrastructure during Iran's military and political support of Assad, a source close to the new political administration has said. Meanwhile, Iran has warned against, quote, destructive foreign interference in the new Syria, saying that its future should be decided by the Syrian people themselves.
Iran's position on Syria is very clear, safeguarding Syria's sovereignty and territorial integrity, and allowing Syrians to determine the future of their country without foreign intervention. It's important that Syria should not turn into a safe haven and a place for the growth of terrorism.
And so, with the political shift in Syria, a whole new Middle East takes shape as the long-standing Iran-Syria alliance now turns into a dangerous feud.
While tensions are rising between China and the Philippines, Manila has announced its plans to deploy mid-range missiles to strengthen defenses in the South China Sea. China has called the move provocative, warning that it could aggravate regional stability. The Philippines military explained that the decision comes amid growing concerns over China's military presence in the disputed waters. Earlier this year, the U.S. deployed its Typhoon mid-range missile system in northern Philippines, further strengthening and heightening tensions in that region. China has long opposed U.S. military assistance to the Philippines, viewing it as a threat to its influence in the South China Sea and the wider Indo-Pacific region.
The deployment of this strategic and aggressive weapon by the Philippine side is a provocative and dangerous move that stokes regional tensions and intensifies geopolitical confrontation and arms race in collusion with non-regional countries. It is an extremely irresponsible choice for the history and people of itself and the whole of Southeast Asia, as well as for the security of the region.
Under President Joe Biden, the U.S. has strengthened military alliances in the region, particularly to counter China's growing ambitions, including any potential conflict over Taiwan. The situation remains fragile, with both sides not ruling out the possibility of further escalation. Meanwhile, China has pushed back against Canadian sanctions, defending measures taken against 2 Canadian institutions and 20 individuals involved in human rights issues in Xinjiang and Tibet. The sanctions include freezing of assets and restricting visas, targeting both rights advocacy groups and their employees. As these global tensions unfold, the situation in the South China Sea remains a crucial flashpoint, with military moves and diplomatic pressure escalating between China and the Philippines. The U.S. is keeping a close watch on that region.
تم ضربة بدون أي سابق إنذار ولا أي عذر. تم ضرب مطار صنعاء، ضرب المدنيين، صالات المدنيين، الصالات وبرج المطار. برج المطار فيه موظفين مدنيين من هيئة العامة للطيران.
Our experience in Yemen shows that even in protracted crisis, it's both possible and necessary to provide humanitarian assistance in a way that doesn't just alleviate suffering, but contributes to restoring health services.
Kita kehilangan lah Bang, kan namanya juga keluarga kita, apalagi abang kita, kakak ipar kan anaknya. Sedih lah Bang pokoknya. Yang nggak orang rasain lah gitu kan, beda-beda lah kan ininya kan. Ya sedih lah Bang kehilangan keluarga.
Kami juga sangat rindu dan kami tidak tahu mereka ada di mana. Yang jelas kami tiap tahun selalu mengunjungi tempat-tempat kuburan massal, terutamanya di Ulelu dan juga di Siron Aceh Besar. Banyak sekali pelajaran yang bisa saya ambil. Yang pertama, hidup ini hanya sementara. Jadi kita lakukan yang terbaik hidup ini supaya bermanfaat bagi orang lain.
Thank you, Janine. And developing now, the investigation continues into a deadly boat explosion in Fort Lauderdale. We're seeing new video today of the intense fire in the moments after the blast. Local 10's Joseph Ojo is joining us live now from Fort Lauderdale with the latest details. Joseph.
And Janice, sadly, a 41-year-old did die and 6 other people were injured after this massive explosion. You can see in the distance, even still right now, crews, they are preparing to remove this boat that is underwater. This, as investigators try to figure out exactly what caused this fire.
There's 2 boats on fire.
Bright orange flames and thick smoke billowing into the air was a sight for many Monday night after this strong explosion at Lauderdale Marina.
Yeah, that boat's completely gone.
Someone find Steve?
Cell phone video showing crew members on neighboring yachts even using their own fire hoses to help.
Turn around and the whole dock was already on fire. It was kind of insane.
Unreal. I heard it, obviously. It was loud.
FWC says the 37-foot vessel had just finished fueling and it exploded once its engines were started.
Do you believe the boat was at the fuel docks near the fuel pumps? We're still determining was it actively fueling. That is unknown. Investigators from our agency, Fulton Fire Rescue, will be doing a thorough investigation.
7 people were on board. 6 were injured and rushed to the hospital. They are thankfully expected to recover. But sadly, 41-year-old Sebastian Gauthier from Canada died after being found in the water hours after the explosion.
I ran out there to try to see if anybody needed help, and one guy was on fire, another person was in the water. I mean, it was just like, it was like chaos all at once.
The damage was so extensive, a second boat also caught fire. Tuesday, our cameras capturing the debris left behind, the sunken boat, and divers in the water appearing to assess the situation. And so the marina does still remain closed at this time as these crews continue to work to remove this boat from the water. We'll keep you posted on what does come from this investigation. We're here in Fort Lauderdale.